Well, we've come to the end of another year in the garden. It's always a good time to look back, think about what worked and what didn't. So here we go. Hey everyone, I'm Erin the Impatient Gardener. I live and garden here in southeastern Wisconsin, zone 6A, technically speaking, and in my brain is zone 65B. So let's give out a few awards in my garden for this year, and let's get right into it with the best new addition to the garden. And actually there were several really good additions to the garden that I feel good and excited about this year. One of them is right here, which doesn't look like much yet, but this is the origami, is it a Korean and Japanese maple hybrid? Let me put it on the screen because it's a hybrid, from Isley Nursery. Big ball of beautiful foliage. Actually, it even looks good. You can't see the branching structure as well right now here in winter, but it's still beautiful even sitting here in winter. But brand new this year, just an outstanding addition. I actually got that tree not knowing exactly where I'd put it. And when we put it right here, it was like, duh, why didn't I have that there sooner? It just fit perfectly in there. I love it so much. Perfect little backdrop in this spot. Another really good addition to the garden this year was the Seven Suns flower tree, the Heptacodium, which took the spot of our beloved serviceberry, which I made quite a big fuss about and got a little nostalgic about because it was the very first tree that we planted on this property. It was a gift from my mother-in-law, and it lived a really good life for a long time. It was a pretty mature tree when we got it. I think we figured it was probably 25 years old. I don't think serviceberries are particularly long-lived trees, and it suffered with cedar apple rust. It was not a disease-resistant variety. It was some regular variety. I don't even know what it was, if we ever knew. And it served us really well. So it was a big deal when we had to replace that. We replaced that with Seven Suns flower tree, Heptacodium. Again, we got a really big one, huge actually, an enormous root ball on that thing. We actually had a neighbor down the road who has a tree farm come and actually dig the hole for us with a giant auger because it was just going to be huge. And quite a different shape than the serviceberry. The serviceberry was a single trunk. This is a multi-trunk with a very sort of fan shape to it. And almost the second we put it in, we sort of knew it was exactly the right call. The shape, I think, frankly, was better than the serviceberry ever was. Right now, it's just slightly taller than a limelight hydrangea that's planted near it. So it will feel a little bit better in scale as it grows, but just right away we just thought, yep, that was the right call, and we were glad we did it. And then the last really good addition to the garden is actually this bench that I'm sitting on here, this beautiful teak bench here. Not because it's a great bench, although it is. We had a bench here before, but this curved bench was a much better fit, and it also coincided with kind of another redevelopment of this part of the garden that I'm sitting in here. And this bench, being right here at the front, it was far more inviting than what was here. I think the curved shape is really well suited, and I feel like it made this part of the garden a focal point. And actually, you've seen me film several videos sitting right here on this bench this year. I don't think I ever filmed a single video sitting on the bench that had been here before. And so I think anytime you put something in your garden that draws you in enough that you actually go to that spot in the garden, I think that's a big success. So this is actually my winner for best addition to the garden, with a few close follow-ups there. The next category is the best new to me plant. So this is not a new to the market plant. This is a plant that was new to me this year. And that had to be the Mila pineapple. So I planted 3 of those right along the edge of the patio bed there. And in addition to the beautiful foliage that had, just this strappy purple red foliage, really beautiful, it also produced a pineapple for me. And that was about the most exciting thing, or one of the most exciting things that happened in my garden. Who knew I was going to grow a pineapple in Wisconsin? I did not see that coming, but the plant itself was an absolutely gorgeous plant. Sadly, there are multiple contenders for the next category, which is the biggest disappointment in the garden this year. One of those disappointments was the vegetable garden in general. Pretty much a terrible year in the vegetable garden. Great garlic harvest, and then it all went downhill from there, to be honest. Nothing grew that well there, and listen, this is primarily my fault. Unfortunately, when I run out of time, the first thing that sort of tends to suffer is the vegetable garden. And that's partly because I've got it hooked up on drip and it kind of can manage itself, except when we need harvesting. So it's the first thing that I know I can skip if I need to. In addition to that, the weather was just not conducive this year to growing a lot of things really well. In our particular location, it was not super hot. And so we just didn't have the heat to get a lot of things going. And we had a stretch of very cold spring. So the tomatoes were extremely late to get started. When they did get started, I realized I didn't plant a lot of big tomatoes, which was a real disappointment to me. I don't know how that happened. I planted a lot of small tomatoes. Which is good probably because those tend to come earlier. So I actually got some, but pretty disappointing tomato harvest. Had a very good cucumber harvest. Beyond that, everything else was kind of very, kind of average to bad. But truly the biggest disappointment of the year was the dahlias. The worst dahlia year I've had since I started really getting into dahlias. Undoubtedly, this is related to the same problem the tomatoes have. I find that tomatoes and dahlias need much of the same conditions and the same treatment. So if I'm having a bad tomato year, I'm probably having a bad dahlia year. And boy, was it terrible this year. So late to get started. Just took forever for dahlias to grow. In fact, some of them never did flower. Some flowered so late that by the time they started, they didn't have much of a chance to get going. It was really, really sad and very, very frustrating for as much work as you put in dahlias, and particularly for me, since they take such an important role in my garden. When they don't perform, there's really some gaps left in the garden. It actually has me rethinking how much I rely on dahlias, and I do think I'm going to rethink the front border underneath the window box for next year and not rely so heavily on dahlias, because that part of the garden was a huge disappointment all year because the dahlias weren't doing anything. Well, the next award goes to the project I should have done a long time ago, and that is right here where I am walking, because this year I changed this bed line just a little bit, but before it used to fall off over here. And what I did was I just continued the round shape of this bed line and basically took a triangle from about here and made this into part of the garden. I think deep down I knew that was something I should have been doing a long time ago, but I just didn't want to go through the hassle of removing that sod and changing more lawn over to garden. Quite a bit of that has left over the years, and so I'm always want to think carefully before I'm creating larger gardens. It's more to take care of, and I am cognizant of how much I'm able to handle. But this is more of a design situation. It was so awkward with that kind of random rounded corner. And actually the whole reason I had kept that rounded corner was because of the landscape lighting we had along the driveway. So when I figured out how to get new landscape lighting, which probably should have been in the category for best new thing in the garden, because it was a relief to get that changed. I hated what was there. I had to incorporate the new lights into this garden, and that's kind of how it all started to make sense. But I should have done that, lighting or not, I should have done that eons ago, because it makes so much more sense. And that actually ties into this bench over here too. So it's one of those things that I don't know why I had a hang up about that for so long, but almost the second it was finished, I said, well, this is so much better. Why? Just should have done this ages ago. Well, anyway, we've corrected that wrong, and now it's done, and big improvement in the garden. And the next award is for my favorite new plant in general. So One of the things that I'm really fortunate to be able to do is trial a lot of new plants a year before they are out in the world for people to get, which is great. So there were several new plants that I tried this year, and in general, I will say that I think I liked more of them than I usually do. A lot of times new plants come and there's one or two that I really get into, but a lot of times I feel like they're kind of duds or they don't do anything fabulous for me. By the way, I should say it's very difficult to judge perennials that are coming out the year before, because for me, the value of a perennial isn't just in what it does in one year, it's what it does after the first winter, when you get into the second year, into the third year. But I don't know how I mean, I can't properly judge a perennial until I know if it's going to actually make it through the winter decently in my area. So usually when I'm thinking like best new plant that's coming out this year for people, I'm probably thinking of annuals. And there are a few of them that really caught my eye. There were also some really good short dahlias that came out this year. Proven Winners had a series of them. There was another one that I grew, and I swear to God, I kept talking all summer about how much I love this dahlia. And I cannot, for the life of me, remember the damn name of this thing. And I couldn't then either, but there was a really good one. I think I can look back at a video here and put that on the screen for you. But these are dahlias that are generally not good tuber producers. So usually you're going to be looking at buying these as annuals, but we're talking about dahlias that are, you know, what is this, 14 inches tall maybe? Perfect for containers or really the front of the border. And they bloom like all year. Like they didn't do the dahlia thing that the rest of my dahlias did. They performed really well all year. But in a great surprise to me at least, probably my favorite new plant / annual of the year was a petunia, which is a surprise because I'm really sick of petunias and I've not been growing a lot of them lately. I've been over petunia'd. But the new cool Super Tunia Vista Cool Jazz, which I didn't have any hope for, to be honest, because I don't love petunias anymore, or at least right now. Don't seem to be loving them that much. I got 3 of those plants as a trial, and I just plopped them in the ground somewhere. And they were a really lovely kind of orchidish color, which is kind of that like lavendery pink color is kind of how I describe that orchid color, but almost iridescent, sort of glowed in the evening. I thought the color was very easy to mix with other colors in my garden, unlike, you know, some petunias, which really have a very specific color palette. The flowers on it were not huge, which was kind of a good thing, I think, because it wasn't kind of didn't feel overdone to me. And in fact, I plan on using those again next year. So Cool Jazz was actually probably my favorite new annual of the year. So here's a category that I didn't expect to be giving out any awards in, because I'm pretty intentional about purchases in my garden. And usually I don't buy things on the spur of the moment. I generally research things, or I have liked them for a long time and I wait until the right time to buy them. But I am giving out an award for the purchase I wish I hadn't made this year. And it is right here behind me. So this purchase came about because I had a smaller version of these pots, 2 of them, on the driveway apron, where I've been growing trees or shrubs as large containers for, gosh, more than that. I don't know, 8 years now maybe. And this was the second year I had this Golden Curls willow in them, which, by the way, I love and hope to repeat or continue with these plants. We'll see. And everything was going great, but unfortunately, the Amazon driver ran right into a pot and absolutely demolished it. They're like a fiber cement type of thing. So there's no fixing that and putting that back together. And it was fully like shattered. So I was in this pickle because we were already into the growing season. They were already planted. And now I had one broken pot that I was holding together with saran wrap while I figured this out. I immediately reported the damage to Amazon, and they said, don't worry about this. We're going to take care of this. This is no problem. So I was under the impression that I was going to get a new pot. Well, it became clear to me that this was not going to be like an instantaneous thing from Amazon, and I didn't want to wait. What I ended up doing was buying the larger version of these pots, which are from Restoration Hardware, and stained them at considerable expense. My choice, but considerable expense. But they weren't really the pots I wanted. The pots I really wanted were a pair of zinc pots from Frames, which were about the same price, or I think actually even less than these ones, which were actually very expensive as well, but less expensive than the ones from Restoration Hardware. And I was justifying this purchase in my head because Amazon was going to pay me for the pot they had broken. The pots I really wanted were sold out for the time being, so I just hurried up and ordered these from Restoration Hardware. Now I've had to stain them because the color they come in was not the color that I wanted them to be, and that's what I had done with the previous pots as well. Well, long story short, Amazon didn't give me any money for damaging that pot. After multiple appeals and multiple insurance companies and spending, hours and hours and hours and hours on the phone with Amazon and filing all kinds of claims and doing all kinds of reports, etc., they denied the claim. So now I spent the money for these pots, and suddenly, had I known I was going to actually pay for both of them, I probably wouldn't have chosen that pot. So I needed pots. They're fine. I'm just a bit bummed because I would have rather gotten the thing I really, really wanted if I was going to be spending all that money on my own. But live and learn. They did their job. They'll be fine. But it's probably the first time I've ever regretted an expensive container purchase. Generally speaking, I feel like containers are great investments. I just wish I loved these as much as I like those other ones if I was going to spend that money. But oh well. This next category isn't much of an award, but it's for the plant that I got rid of in my garden this year. Now, I'm a pretty big advocate of getting rid of plants that don't serve you for whatever reason that is, whether they're not performing or you've decided you just don't like them or they're too much work. I don't think you need to have an excuse to get rid of a plant. But this year, for the most part, I was pretty happy with what was growing in the garden. There is one hydrangea that got the hook this year. There are so many good hydrangeas on the market that I feel like, particularly with that shrub, we don't need to be messing about with ones that we don't absolutely love. And so that is why I got rid of my Invincible Lace hydrangea, which I had planted in the garden kind of closer to the road. It's kind of got more of a natural look. I love those lace cap flowers in general. It's one of the reasons why I love Haas Halo hydrangea. It was very sparse in blooms. When it did bloom, the flowers were not notable in form, in color. Now, of course, this could be me. I've seen it in other places. I've seen photos of it where it looks really nice. It was doing nothing for me. I just felt like it was really falling down on the job, and it was taking up a pretty prime real estate there. And I actually replaced that in fall with a new type of panicle hydrangea. So we'll see how that goes. But it was not a hard decision for me to take that one out. I just felt like it just wasn't doing much for me. And the last category is the best visitor to my garden this year. I enjoy having visitors to the garden. I like having people enjoy my garden as well. But the most important and best visitor to the garden this year was the team from Fine Gardening magazine. So Danielle Sherry, who is now the editorial director for the gardening group at AIM Media, which is Fine Gardening magazine, Gardening Gate magazine, and Horticulture magazine, she came as well as a fabulous photographer and videographer. And they spent a very early morning in my garden shooting pictures and video. And it was an entire joy. And it has all come to life in this issue of Fine Gardening magazine. And the best thing about it is that in addition to this, I got to write the story as well. So this was, one of the most exciting things that happened in the garden this year. also the best visitors. So this is the winter 2026 issue, should be out right about the same time this video goes out. What a great way to put a wonderful cap on the gardening year for me. That is the review of the 2025 garden. I cannot wait to see what happens in 2026. Already, I think there's going to be some really great stuff happening. So I hope you guys had a great year in your garden in 2025. I can't wait to hear what you guys are going to be up to in the new year, and I definitely can't wait for you to come along on the journey with me. Have a great day in your garden. See you soon.